So, which Hollow Knight ending is canon now? Hey guys, sorry it's been a minute since the last upload. I'm currently working on a bunch of major projects simultaneously, and one of them is my review of Hollow Knight's Silksong. To steal the words of my friend Z and Yahtzee Croshaw, I guess, it's the GTA 6 of indie games, and you guys know I love a good indie game. So I'm trying to give the review my all. But while delving into the story of the game, I ended up going on a bit of a tangent trying to figure out what the ending of Silksong meant, and if we could finally discover which Hollow Knight ending was really, truly canon. The section kind of absorbed the script, and so I thought I'd just separate it out into its own video. A long time ago, Team Cherry did a Reddit AMA on Hollow Knight and was asked which ending is canon. They said, at the time, that all of the endings were equally canon, and that none was correct. While this may have been true at the time, we now have a sequel to Hollow Knight that builds on the events of the game. This changes the all endings are equally canon fact, because it proves that certain things had to have taken place. What things? Let's find out. Omega Turbo Ultra spoilers for both Hollow Knight and Silksong lie ahead. I'm talking about the final endings of both games, so be very wary if you haven't reached them. And finally, be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel if you're excited about Silksong, or if you enjoy this kind of lore video. It's new for me, but there's lots to talk about in Pharloom. I'd love to make them if you want to see them. Awesome. I'm Loremaster Volcaronite, child of Flame and Radiance, and welcome to the Volcaronite Oracle of Lore Collection, or VOLC. I'm here to tell you which ending of Hollow Knight is canon. Okay, let's start in Hallownest. I'm going to give you the briefest possible summary of the story in Hollow Knight, along with relevant lore. If you want more, I highly recommend these two videos, which do a great job of talking about the story of the game. Note that any errors in this video are mine. I did do all of my own research into the games, and it's possible that I made mistakes along the way. Alright, let's go. A relevant lore summary of Hollow Knight. Hallownest is a kingdom at the end of its decline. The region once played host to several tribes, all living, well, not exactly harmoniously, but they all lived around each other and managed not to wipe each other out for the most part. Of these tribes, there's only two we care about today. First is the Spider tribe of Deepnest. The Spiders are a hostile, vicious group. They live on the very outskirts of Hallownest. There's two important things to know about the Spiders. The first was that they were ruled by Hera, a weaver. A weaver is a special kind of spider that originated from Pharloom and can magically spin silken thread. This is important for the second thing because at some point, other weavers visited Deepnest from Pharloom. There's a weaver den in Deepnest where they stayed. The other tribe we need to talk about is the Moths. These guys are virtually extinct, with only one left by the time the game starts. This lone living moth, the Seer, tells of an ancient moth god, a higher being that moths once worshipped. We'll come back to this in a second, because at some point in the past, another higher being came into Hallownest. This was the Pale King, who decided to basically conquer all of the tribes of Hallownest and bring them under his rule. He did this by using his magic god powers, the game calls him a pale being, distinctly more powerful than a regular higher being, to give the many bugs in Hallownest the capacity for higher thought in exchange for servitude. Many of the tribes succumbed to the Pale King's force, but a few did not. The Spiders did not kneel to the Pale King, instead choosing to retreat to their own corner of the land and become even more hostile. The Moths, however, did agree to the Pale King's rule. They adopted the Pale King as their god, abandoning their own in the past. However, this moth god was not satisfied to be forgotten. This god is the Radiance, and she began to fight back. She started afflicting the bugs of Hallownest with an infection. This infection had both a physical and mental effect. Physically, it makes bugs much stronger and hardier. Mentally, it stripped away the Pale King's gift of higher thought and reduced them to be fighters. This infection took over most of the tribes of Hallownest. The Pale King, watching his kingdom collapse to this infection, was very unhappy, so he formed a wacky plan. He needed to find a bug that the Radiance could not affect, a bug that had no mind, no will, no self. The Radiance would try to infect it and would be consumed by the attempt. This bug would itself be locked away behind a magical seal protected by three powerful bugs. The Pale King decided to make this vessel by breeding with another pale being, the White Lady, and casting the resulting eggs into a deep dark abyss that is consumed with an ancient power called Void. There, this void would infect the eggs, and any resulting spawn would, in theory, be empty of mind and will, ready to be a vessel. Thousands were spawned this way. Of these, only 2 matter. One is the eponymous Hollow Knight, which would go on to serve as the vessel to trap the Radiance. The other is the Knight. That's the unhelpful name given to the playable character in Hollow Knight, who escaped the Abyss sometime before the game begins. The 3 bugs that made this seal were called Dreamers, and only one matters today. Hera, the Queen of Spiders, agreed to become a Dreamer if the Pale King agreed to have a child with her. The agreement was reached, and they made one child, Hornet. So this wacky plan went into effect and utterly failed. The Hollow Knight, as it turns out, developed something like emotions. It had daddy issues, see, and this thing's daddy issues caused the apocalypse. The Radiance infected the Hollow Knight and could continue to spread, infecting the rest of the kingdom. The Pale King attempted one more escape, this time into the dream world, but was eventually killed. This is the state of Hallownest when the game begins, the kingdom at the end of its decline. The Knight, unknowingly drawn to the kingdom by the force of the Radiance or the pale glow of its father or destiny or whatever, journeys into Hallownest. Okay, so with all of this in our minds, let's take a look at the endings of Hollow Knight. There's 5 in total. The first is the Hollow Knight. The Knight breaks the seal that restrains the Hollow Knight and slays it. The Knight is then held captive at that same place, it's called the Black Egg, and the Radiance attempts to infect it. However, the Knight is probably capable of being a vessel to hold the Radiance in stasis eternally, and so is forever trapped, not really saving Hallownest, but allowing it to heal. The second is Sealed Siblings. This is mostly the same, except Hornet appears. She breaks into the Black Egg during the Knight's fight with the Hollow Knight at a crucial point, trying to get the Knight to slay the Radiance in the dream world. The Knight does not, instead slaying the Hollow Knight and taking its place. Hornet is also trapped in the Black Egg here, and almost certainly dies. The third ending is Dream No More. The Knight this time takes Hornet's help, enters the dream world, and slays the Radiance. This ends the infection permanently, and sees the Knight attaining a new, powerful form as a part of the Void. Hornet survives, sees the Knight's mask cracked, and Hallownest is free from the infection. The fourth ending is Embrace the Void. Instead of slaying the Radiance in the dream of the Hollow Knight, the Knight instead finds a character called the Godseeker in the junk pit below Hallownest's capital city. Entering the dream world through her mind, the Knight ascends the 5 pantheons of gods and slays the absolute Radiance at the peak of the highest one. This also has the effect of destroying the infection, and we see the Void escaping into the kingdom through the body of the Godseeker. Hornet survives here. She was waiting outside the Black Egg to help the Knight, and looks ready to throw down with the just released Hollow Knight. The fifth and final ending is Delicate Flower. This is the same as the previous ending, except that the Knight has previously given the Godseeker a delicate flower. This time, when the Void begins to escape through the Godseeker's body, the flower absorbs and completely contains it, settling to the ground. Hornet's role in this ending is the same. Fantastic. Now, we know everything that we need in order to start solving this puzzle. Let's go. I think the best way we're going to be able to solve this problem is to take all the facts we know and put them into a table, like this. Endings along the top, the various fates and facts down the side. Let's fill them in with what we know from the 5 endings. First, and most importantly to Silksong, is the fate of Hornet. Across these endings, only one sees Hornet being killed, Sealed Siblings. We'll continue to track this ending, but with this fact, we can pretty much guarantee that this ending is not canon to Silksong. Next is the fate of the Knight. The Knight makes a cameo in Silksong, right here as the game ends. We see the Knight in the Void tendril form that it assumed when slaying the Radiance, so we know it must have accessed this form. This means that it can't have just taken the Hollow Knight's place, which rules out both Sealed Siblings and the Hollow Knight. Easy enough so far, but now we have to deal with the third ending fact, the power of the Delicate Flower. The Delicate Flower originated as a quest item in Hollow Knight. The Grey Mourner has an unlimited supply of these rare magical blooms and asks the Knight to deliver one to the grave of her love. It's delicate because if the Knight takes any damage along the way, the flower breaks and the Grey Mourner shames and berates the Knight for being careless with his precious gift before giving the Knight another. That's not important for this journey, but I wanted to share with you that this cretin right here is a piece of Shinodic. Anyway, once you deliver the flower to the grave, it blooms into a bush of these flowers, from which you can pick as many as you want. You can deliver and offer these flowers to a few NPCs around the world who will comment on it. Let's do just that and glean what fragments of knowledge they offer. The first recipient, and the most important, is the God Seeker. She recognizes the flower as both rare and pure, though also says it does not contain any godliness. She then mocks the knight with ideas for repayment that I don't think I can show on YouTube without being age restricted, before keeping the bloom. This, of course, is the requirement for triggering the delicate flower ending. 3 more recipients don't really add anything to our knowledge on the flower. Nailmaster Oro treats it like trash, as does Eternal Emilidia, who won't even accept it. The Elderbug is grateful for the beautiful gift, though doesn't seem to recognize much more than that. The final recipient is the White Lady. She won't accept the flower either, though she does recognize it. She states that the flower came here from far away, brought by one beloved. She knows of the Grey Mourner and her journey to bring the flower to her love, though that's not important now. What is important is her statement that the flower contains a rare power in its petals. She also says to the knight, and I'll just quote directly here, "To hold it so close, one must surely be unaware of its nature." Huh. In order to understand this fully, we need to enter a dimension called What is the Knight Like Actually? Follow me. As we talked about in the Hollow Knight summary, the knight is a child of the Pale King and the White Lady, corrupted by the Void. But that last little phrase glosses over a lot of complexity that we need to break into. Being corrupted by the Void doesn't mean what you probably instinctually think it means, because the Void isn't a living thing on its own. It's kind of the opposite of light. It is a mindless foe of all higher and pale beings. Left unshaped, it attacks indiscriminately, and it exists at the bottom of the world, probably the bottom of all worlds. Long ago in Hallownest lived an ancient civilization that worshipped the Void. We don't know exactly what happened to them, but we do know that they existed from lore tablets and their creations. The Pale King knew about them too. It's how he got the idea to use the Void in his wacky plan. Now, ordinarily, the Pale King would be the ultimate foe of the Void. The Pale King emits a brilliant mindful light, and the Void devours thought and light into darkness. But in the Pale King's battle against the Radiance, he sought the Void as a way to snuff out the light. So the Pale King and the White Lady engage in a dalliance and cast their eggs into the abyss where the Void originates. Those eggs take into themselves the Void, and the bugs that spawn are animated not by regular life, but by the Void itself. These bugs, called vessels, are alive. Their form of life is different to that of regular bugs, but it's life nonetheless. They can fight, they can listen, they can obey. The Pale King hoped that these creatures would be incapable of emotion, but this turned out to be mostly false. Nevertheless, these vessels are creatures animated entirely by Void, given the shape of the offspring of the Pale King and the White Lady. The Pale King used Void to give life to other creatures, which he'd use as guards, showing that the Void can be used to animate and obey in various ways. But the Void is still exceptionally dangerous. It's deadly to basically all bugs that aren't made of the stuff. It's part of why the Abyss was sealed off after the Pale King selected the vessel that would become the Hollow Knight. How this selection happened isn't totally clear, but regardless, one vessel was elevated and the rest were trapped. Over time, several vessels were able to escape the Abyss, and one of those vessels was the Knight. So, the Knight is a creature that is animated purely by Void. Okay, back to the White Lady's comment. The White Lady knows what the Knight is, her Void-animated offspring. She also seems to know the power of the delicate flower, and specifically comments about the danger it presents to the Knight. Right? This is the secret final boss encounter that you have to face when you're trying to decipher any course of events in this game. There's just not that much lore available, and so much of it is vague enough that it can be interpreted in various ways. I think that the White Lady is talking about how the delicate flower is capable of swallowing and containing the Void. This dialogue was added to the game in the same DLC pack that added the delicate flower ending, so it seems to me that her comment alludes to that ending. But maybe not? Maybe she's talking about the fact that the Knight's path is dangerous, and any strike would cause the flower to wither. Maybe she knows about the Grey Mourner's connection to the flower, and is cautioning the Knight against losing it, lest it face the Grey Mourner's wrath. Maybe, since it's such a rare thing, she thinks that the flower might be stolen from the Knight by the many foes in the kingdom, and since the flower glows, the Knight is a huge target. Or maybe it's something else entirely. It was impossible to say. Until Silksong. The delicate flower makes an appearance in Silksong. In fact, it's required to face the final ending. Let's go over the story of Silksong very briefly. the Weavers have been sending out envoys to find other Weavers to come back and slay the higher being that has taken over and is ruling Pharloom. That's probably why the Weavers in Deep Nest were there. Hera was a Weaver. Because Weaverdom is hereditary, Hornet is also a Weaver, and only a Weaver can defeat and supplant the higher being. Silksong is split into 3 acts. The first sees Hornet making the pilgrimage to the center of power in this new kingdom where she's been taken captive. The second act sees Hornet gathering the tools to reach and slay the higher being that has taken the entire kingdom captive with an illness of the mind. Silksong can end here at the pinnacle of the second act. Hornet slays this higher being, Grandmother Silk, binds her power, and assumes her place at the pinnacle of the Citadel. The mind virus that has captured the kingdom is vanquished, and Pharloom can rebuild. By the way, if this so far sounds like a very similar story to Hollow Knight, then you're right, but that's a point for the review. For now, let's just stick to the story. Now, instead of slaying Grandmother Silk, there is another option. Assuming that she's done enough in the world, Hornet can acquire a set of tools to trap Grandmother Silk instead of simply slaying her. She needs to seek help from a few denizens of the world, has the trap set, and activates it by playing her needle in upon defeating Grandmother Silk. Turns out, this trap is actually a portal to the abyss below Pharloom. The Void, always seeking to snuff out higher beings, reaches up and captures Grandmother Silk. She tries to take Hornet with her, but before she can, Lace appears to cut off Grandmother Silk's arm, saving Hornet but falling to the Void herself. Okay, what? Lace is an NPC throughout Silksong. You fight her as a boss a couple of times. She is a direct daughter of Grandmother Silk, but is not happy about this. Lace is a life made entirely of silk and is not a bug like everyone else. And she hates this. She sees herself as weak, lesser, and not even really alive. Hornet, who has encountered a life formed by the lifeless before, tries to ensure Lace that her life is worth living, but Lace does not agree. She hates her mother, Grandmother Silk, for making her. So, when she sees Hornet being dragged into the abyss with Grandmother Silk, Lace sees an opportunity to get revenge on her mother. She saves Hornet by severing her mother's arm, causing her mother to fall into the abyss. However, Lace also gets dragged down into the abyss as the abyss portal expands and starts spewing void threads everywhere. See, the story is different. It's not daddy issues that caused this kingdom's destruction, it's mommy issues. Anyway, Grandmother Silk should have been killed by the Void, but was not. She fights against the Void in order to save the life of her daughter. You see, Grandmother Silk actually cares for, probably loves Lace, despite the fact that Lace hates her mother for forcing her to be alive. Yikes. Hornet confronts a sort of memory phantom of Lace, it's not really clear how that works, and Lace wants Hornet to leave well enough alone. Lace is happy that hers was the killing blow to her mother, doesn't care that Pharloom is collapsing, and wants Hornet to buzz off and let them die. Hornet refuses, of course. She wants to save Pharloom, not stand by and watch it die as she did Hallownest. She couldn't save Hallownest, but she can save Pharloom. So, she seeks help from the snail shamans that helped her spring the Void trap. She remembers a Void-resistant flower from her mind and has them use their power to allow her to travel into her memories and retrieve that flower. That flower is, of course, the delicate flower, though it's called the Everbloom here. Hornet is able to obtain the flower from a dream of the White Lady, can manifest that flower into the world, then is able to use it to protect herself from the Void in order to save and free Lace from the Void's influence. Hornet succeeds and escapes the Void with Lace, while Grandmother Silk finally allows herself to succumb to the Void and probably die. During Hornet's escape, the flower is destroyed. It seems that its capacity for Void resistance is limited, and it was expended during the escape. Just as the Void is about to consume Hornet and Lace, though, a Void figure emerges. This is almost certainly the Knight, in the form it attained when slaying the Radiance. It recognizes and spares Hornet and Lace, bringing them to the surface of the abyss and allowing them to live. Alright, so how do we characterize the appearance of the delicate flower's power here? What does this tell us? At first, I thought this was proof that the delicate flower ending to Hollow Knight was the canon one. Indeed, this is the conclusion I came to in my first review draft before breaking it off into this video. After all, aside from the White Lady's brief and vague hint to the Knight, the delicate flower ending is the only proof we ever see for the flower's void-sucking ability. Hornet is a gifted fighter and has traveled all around Hallownest. I assumed that she knew all about the Godseeker, saw the creature missing, and recognized the flower sitting in her place. The White Lady had told her about the Everbloom, so Hornet recognized it. This interpretation requires a lot of assumptions, though. It assumes that Hornet did in fact survive the fight with the Hollow Knight, no easy thing. She must have visited the junk pit, recognized the delicate flower, and understood what happened. More importantly, the knight must have been able to join the Void in the real world, outside of the God home dream, despite this fairly conclusive ending. Finally, it basically completely discounts the interaction between Hornet and the White Lady in the Red Memory. No, I no longer believe that the delicate flower ending is canon. Let me now take you through my current thoughts to my most recent conclusion. Hornet served the White Lady and Pale King while they were both still ruling over Hallownest. During the Red Memory, we see her kneeling before and listening to the White Lady. I don't think we should take the Red Memory scene as literal fact. After all, the White Lady talks to the current Hornet, not the Hornet from the memory. And in this version of the memory, the White Lady gives Hornet an Everbloom. So, Hornet learned of the Everbloom's void resistance property from the White Lady, after the birth of the vessels but before Hallownest's final downfall. The White Lady didn't give Hornet an Everbloom in this original meeting, she probably didn't have one, but the memory of the Everbloom existed in Hornet's mind from this encounter. There was no real reason for her to tell the knight about the Everbloom because it had no real use to the knight. Indeed, she probably saw it as potentially deadly to the knight, just as the White Lady did. However, she still remembered its power, regardless of whether or not she saw it used in the junk pit. Also worth noting, the knight is a part of the Void in Silksong's ending. The knight is there, swimming around or whatever. In the delicate flower ending of Hollow Knight, the knight is swallowed up by the delicate flower, and so cannot escape out into the world at large. Finally, there's one more point about the knight that I glossed over earlier. If the knight chooses to slay the Absolute Radiance in Godhome, it attains a different, more powerful form than the one it gets if it slays the regular Radiance in the Black Egg. The Godhome form is much larger, with an entirely different shape. The version of the knight that we see in Silksong is visually identical to the one that we see when the knight destroys the Radiance in the Black Egg. I don't think this is conclusive on its own, but with the rest of the evidence, I think it's the final piece of the puzzle. I believe that the Dream No More ending of Hollow Knight is the one true ending. The other 4 endings are extra, non-canon events that did not take place in the world of Silksong. Okay, one final mitigation. This proof is not exhaustive. I actually don't believe that we have enough concrete information to say, one way or the other, what events are truly canon. And there's always the possibility that I missed something or jumped to a wrong conclusion. I'm still a young lore master, and I have a long way to go. If you spotted an error or simply disagree with me, please feel free to comment. I'm always sure to read them all. That's it for this video. Be sure to get subscribed so you don't miss my Silksong review when that comes out. We've also got Pokemon Legends ZA and Metroid Prime 4 coming out this year, and I'll definitely be covering both of these games. Get subscribed to be the first to see them. But that's all I've got for you today, so enjoy your day and take care.